The Dauntless. It takes a minute for them to arrive at the destination. A minute where Modan's self-control is tested to the limit so that he resists the urge to scream. Apparently, the 420 sisters drive like they're on a supersonic roller coaster. According to them and confirmed by Jadza, it's normal for the gravia. They calculate the vectors far too easily for them to be afraid of driving like a complete and total maniac. Then, just as fast as the insane trip began, it ends. The inertial dampeners installed into the vehicle stopping things from so much as flying away. "Bring the array back on. I want to see it while we eat," Eve asks him, and he shrugs before complying. The information of all things starts to appear at the edge of his vision. As it clears up, all three of the 420 sisters start cooing a bit and Modan sighs. Of course, they brought him to a place with a high gravia density. They want to show him off. Without him focusing on probability waveforms, he can sense everything in the area. He's seeing through walls, through the platforms above and below that the cities are built on, and he pulls it back and keeps his senses close. He just looked at everyone. "So I have a question," Modan asks, even as he fully leaves the vehicle. Was it really the gravid faith that created the gravia, or were they just the people that put the finishing touches on something? Because I can see a distinct break in the pattern. Like it went from, "I'm not sure," a project made with a very distinct and specific methodology, then it was wrapped around with enormous amounts of data from every other direction. "Oh boy, here we go," Jadza mutters. "What?" Modan asks. "We're totally unsure as to what the actual origins are," Mara states. "There's too many different sources and touches of history that go back to totally different worlds and peoples. The gravid faiths experiment brought us out, but it didn't do anywhere near enough to make even half of a gravia. Then where's the rest from? I don't know. Best we can tell, there's bits and pieces in almost every culture. Whenever someone tries to calculate life or reason out things like that and include Axiom into the equation, they totally end up with part of the gravia code." "That interesting. Were those formulae used in the first gravia?" "Not directly. Once the post of metastability was reached, it totally just writes itself out, drawing on a deeper information." "From where? How does the information transfer and, the other direction," Modan muses. "The other direction." He's not sure who asks him this, but he shakes his head. "Too little is known about it. We know there is a predatory form of life within it. We know it can be operated for extremely potent axiom-adjacent abilities. We know that there is much more we do not fully know." He explains, putting aside the facts he'd been given about the other direction. He wasn't sure he believed even half of them. Another energy field was almost trivial to understand. It being harder to access was again easy to understand. The very idea that you could resurrect the dead by properly warding off the predators within it and operating the field was absurd. The less said about his opinion on ascending into a primal, the better. But it could be summarized as, "I'll believe it when I see it." Although only after it follows a few minutes of derisive laughter at the very idea. Not that he could fully rule it out, as Urthani the galaxy over were shifting as a people. Those that have freshly cast aside their pupating cocoons were emerging differently, still themselves, still Urthani, but there are clear species distinctions. Back in the here and now, Modan finds himself and Jadza herded to a cafe, one that has a pastel and floral theme, and each table has a little view screen pyramid with enormous amounts of data flying by. Data he can easily understand with his mind accelerated and enhanced the way it is. Without focusing on a fight, he just understands. The rest of reality is moving too slowly for him to do anything but sit down and think. Nothing is happening fast enough and he's getting bored. Thankfully, what's on the screens is distracting enough that he can relax without getting restless. See, I totally told you that he's got an Axiom construct that makes him like a gravia, May says even as the cook proprietor rushes out of the back to stare. See? Oh my gosh, he's like so totally cute. You girls are so lucky, the owner exclaims. Oh right, where are my manners? I'm Teresa 86. A pleasure. Modan Maji, quartermaster on the Dauntless and Undaunted. So, have you guessed why we've brought you here? Oh, let me guess. You're about to either introduce some great secret or attempt to seduce me in some way. That's the way things generally go at this. From the adjustments on your code, which I really need to study, that's not it. But your reaction on my mentioning of wanting to study the code is, I'll shut up now. You've totally got no clue on just how tempting a man who can see us properly is, do you? Teresa 86 asks as she wrings her hands together and visibly attempts to rein in the urge to jump him. He can actively see her code evolve and shift based on this new portion of her life. This little revelation just changed the math ever so slightly. Well, based on the reaction, extremely, Modan notes. We're totally aware of what our appearance is like to others. We totally know what it brings up and how, uncomfortable it is. From the way we communicate to our totally off-putting selves. We're aware. We know. We do, Eve states. It takes years for a person to see past them sometimes, Mara adds. Normally, someone has to focus and meditate in order to properly see us. You're just, Teresa 86 says in vague wonder. It's not sight, it's not fully an Axiom sense either. That's totally why I used there, Teresa 86 says, and Modan considers. What do you call it then? He asks, and Teresa 86's answer is audible in the Axiom and not something he can replicate or fully understand. I see. I need to learn even more. Darling, I'm already totally married. Stop trying to flirt with a lockdown lady, Teresa 86 says. You all have some fun and I'll get totally on it the moment you order. With that, she sweeps away and Modan is trying to figure things out as he watches her leave. He turns to the 420 sisters and tries to puzzle things out. He can see past the illusion, and while he can actually perceive them, it's hard to describe. They're somehow everything that they look like, but all at once. That's what the shifting is. Your eyes are skipping from one mutually exclusive but accurate form to another that they are despite the forms occupying the same space. The 8-bit, the crude polygons, the too perfect appearance, the normal woman, the collections of shapes that vaguely moves as one. They're all of them. He can process them. He can handle it, but he also knows he won't be able to keep it up. Human vision is not designed to do such a thing, but from a single input point he can process it a dozen times over, and it's not double vision. It's like my vision is trying to superimpose all the states and variances of the gravia form on each other. So you're seeing them all at once? Jadza asks. It's the shifting. The shifting makes you have a headache. But seeing them all at once and not processing it would hurt even more. So skipping around is a protection, Modan says with a frown. So does it look good on us? Eve asks. Pardon? Our outfits, don't they look totally cute on us? She asks, and Modan blinks before re-examining. All three are in bright pink and have blonde hair with bright blue eyes. A strapless mini dress and high heels on all three. It does look good, but at the same time it's also confusing to see a collection of shapes that are more painted pink than wearing pink. He vaguely understands things. They do, but he begins and there's some squealing in delight. I'm confused as to the hows. How is it that you're wearing the same thing across what seems to be dozens of different selves? I know you're all one, but at the same time, how do you dress one that is many? I can see it's actual clothing, but it's not clothing on all levels. So how does that work? What are you talking about? Jadza asks him. All right, are any of them in the form that looks like a collection of spheres, cones, cubes, and other such shapes? Modan asks her. Mara was just like that. She's gone very, very, very detailed and more realistic than real now. Jadza answers. Did you notice that the shapes were colored in such a way as to match the outfit? Modan asks, and Jadza pauses. She then turns and stares. But I can see it's a dress. I can see the detail in the fabric. You're wearing a dress? A pink dress. She is, but it's also on every iteration. How? We just put it on. Remember? Eve states, holding out her hand. Modan takes it and it feels normal. Remember, our physical presence doesn't change. It's just how the wavelengths of light interact with us that does. I know, but I'm trying to understand. I can see the formulae. I can feel the skin and the warmth, but humans are very visually focused. Most races are very visually focused. It allows the retention of knowledge in written form, which is a very powerful tool in evolution. Which goes back to the earlier topic of how your own race evolved. Modan states, even as he feels her hand. The fact that what he's feeling matches perfectly with a handful of her appearances and is a mismatch along the others. He tries to feel the seam between the shapes that he sees in the collection of shapes instance but can't find it. I'm like starting to get jealous, May states. I'm starting to think a blind man would have an easier time understanding all this. Modan notes. But it's like totally wrong to wish for ignorance. Mara chides him. It can be, but not all knowledge is useful or usable, Modan says. On the Axiom side of things, you're an immensely complicated effect that is completely integrated and living off of the local field. Physically, you're women, as you are also audibly. But the visual data is confusing everything. This should be cut and dry, but are cloak invariants not there because they're invisible? Eve asks him. They're there. I know that for a fact. Then why is this so totally different? We have a confusing image and not a stealthy one. But unless you totally want to dig deep into just what we are and go into historical context, then we're just kind of different, Mara says. Hey, did you just read that? Eve asks, and everyone turns to the little pyramid of information, and she reverses its output. A rash of Earthani injuries all over Centris and other highly populated worlds as Earthani youth are bursting out of their cocoons and testing out their new variations. The search for the suspected primal Earthani is ongoing, and the great Nagasha queen Haliciana has vowed to find her insectoid sibling in immortality and aid in guiding their people. I'm still not sure what to think about that, Mara says. Interesting times ahead. The whole galaxy seems to have gotten weirder the moment we joined up, Modan says as he lets go of Eve's hand at last. He can understand it and bring things together, but the moment his mental enhancement is released, it's going to be a bit of a headache. We have, however, gotten massively off-target girls, which is easy with the big man around, Jadza says with a smile. You three wanted the chance to meet him to see if there's something you can learn or if you'd make a good match. What do you three think about Modan now? I think I like him, Eve says. He's got warm hands. Smart and curious. I want in, Mara says. My sisters have spoken, and someone who looks that deeply at a girl to understand her has all sorts to recommend him. May we come in? May asks, and Jadza considers.